In this video, we're going to be taking a look at PMI's, the Project Management Institute, new PMBOK guide, 8th edition, that's currently in draft mode. We'll talk about what this guide is, how is it different than the older versions of the PMBOK guides that I have here, and how does it affect the current PMP exam. Right now it's December 2024. And if you're studying for the PMP exam, you're probably wondering, hey, how does this affect me? And if you work in project management, you're wondering, well, how does this affect me? In this video, we're going to answer all those questions. I'm going to give you some predictions on my part, and we're going to actually dive into the book. Brief, though. I don't want to go too in-depth into it, as this is only a draft and it may change by the time it's publicized. So with that in mind, let's get started. I'm Andrew Ramdial. I am the author of Amazon's best-selling PMP study guide, PMP, Exam Prep Simplified. So if you want to pass your current PMP exam, this is the book to get. This is the #1 best-selling book on Amazon. And it is, let's put this over here because we'll come back to this in a minute. And it is, I am the creator of Udemy's best-selling course for the PMP exam, over 370,000 enrollment. I've been teaching PMP since 2008. Let's get started. Okay, first up, I want to just go to the PMI's website, and I want to show you guys that this is something that you can go and look at right now. So where is that camera button? Here we go. So here I'm at PMI.org. This is their website. You'll notice I'm already logged in, by the way. I'm logged in as John Doe. It's my account that I use to make applications, to show students how to do applications. So you guys notice this is the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. And you notice you can now go and share your feedback. There's a comment period from this December 20th to January 19, 2025. So 2024 December to 2025 January. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that the PMBOK Guide 8th edition has basically been written, and PMI wants you and me, project managers, folks that works in this industry, to go and comment, to take a look at it, and to give them their feedback. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. But before I get into the book, because I really like this book, much better than the previous edition, the 7th edition. Before I get into this book, I want to talk a little bit about your PMP exam and how this affects the actual PMP exam. So to do that, I want to give you some of my predictions. Now, the PMI doesn't reach out to me. PMI doesn't reach out to anyone and tell them all their plans coming up. But I want to give you some of my predictions based on what I've seen over the last almost 20 years of teaching this program. So let's go into it. First of all, if you're studying right now for your PMP exam, this will not affect you until late 2025 or early 2026. All right, so if you're studying, well, let's say right now it's January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, up to September, I would say, 2025, don't worry about this. This has no effect on you. Why? Well, because by January 19, 2025, the reviews are done. In other words, all the comments are finished. In other words, if you go onto PMI's website right now and you make a comment, by January 19th or the 20th, whatever date that was, PMI is going to pull back now and says, okay, we're done taking comments for this book. Now, once they finish getting comments for the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, the next step is for them to review those comments. For the folks, the writers, the amazing folks that writes these books, they're going to go back, they're going to look at the comments, they may incorporate, they may remove, they may adjust. That's why I don't want to get too much into the book in this video, because the actual publication of the book may change. I don't think it's going to change drastically, but it may change when it's actually publicized. That's going to take months. I don't think it's going to take years. I believe this book is probably not going to get published maybe until Q4, I believe, in 2025. So late Q3, early to late Q4 is when this book is actually released. In other words, it becomes a purchasable PMBOK like the 7th edition is. When this book goes out, then PMI may start to add it in to the PMP exam. Now, I want to point out something to you guys. The PMP exam is not based on the PMBOK guide. The PMBOK guide is one of the resources that it utilizes. Keep that in mind. It's not the only resource. In fact, if you just Google PMP exam reference list, you'll notice there is like 10, 12 books listed there. PMBOK Guide is one of them. It's probably the main book they use, but it is just one of the books. So when is PMI going to add this new PMBOK? And trust me, it's a pretty big change in terms of process names if you stick around for that. So PMI is probably not going to update your PMP exam with this book. If it comes out in late Q3, maybe Q4, but I don't think this exam is changing until at least Q1 2026. In other words, I don't think this PMP exam is going to see any significant changes until 2026, early 26 is probably when we're going to see it. So if you're studying for your PMP exam, I wouldn't worry too much about this book. Now, if you're studying for your PMP exam, I like you guys watching my videos, and I would love for you guys to stick around so I can get that wonderful ad revenue. But I don't want you to watch any more of this video, because in the rest of this video, I'm going to be taking a short, in-depth review of the PMBOK Guide and tell you guys what are some of the differences. So if you're studying for your PMP exam, let's get off of this video right now. I'll see you in another video. And for the rest of us, let's dive into the book, all right? Again, if you're studying for the PMP exam right now, you want to become PMP, just get this book. This is all you need to pass the current PMP exam. Hundreds of thousands of people use this book and this course and the course that comes with it, or you can get the course on Udemy to pass their exam. If that's your objective, go and study. I'm done with you on this video, and I'll see you in another video. Now, let's move on to the actual review of the PMBOK Guide. All right, let's go and take a look at an actual review here of the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. And I got some notes here that I want to review with you guys. So I got some interesting notes that I'm going to review with you guys in the actual book itself. Let's move this over here. So the first thing I want to point out is, before I get into it, here's what they really did. You see, let's do a quick history review. So there was the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. This book had those 49 processes, the process groups, the knowledge areas, right? So PMBOK Guide 6th edition, 49 processes, knowledge areas, and process groups across the entire thing, right? If you read the 6th edition, if you got certified in the 6th edition, if you're studying right now for the PMP, you probably learned a lot about this. Then came the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. This one here, it didn't really have any of the process groups. It didn't have the knowledge areas. What it did have was principles, project management principles, and then what's called performance domains. So the principles apply to every project. So does performance domains, but the principles drove the performance domain. It was kind of this book was a really odd read to me because I wasn't really sure how to really apply any of it. So I wasn't a fan of this book. So what PMI did was they realized that this book here is not very useful in terms of practical implementation. So what PMI did was they created a book to help you implement the practical implementation, literally called a practice guide. This one brought back the 49 processes, the process groups, and all the processes that was in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. So basically they renamed the 6th edition to this book, the Process Group Practice Guide. So what did they do now? I know this gets a little confusing. Well, you know what? Here's what they did. They basically took this book. Remember, this PMBOK Guide 6th edition and this book is the same thing. So what they did was they took the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, the process group, and they combined it. And if you look at the name, I know you guys look right here. You see what it says here? It says PMBOK Guide 8th edition, because that's really not 100%, but that's really what the 8th edition is. It's really a combination of what we learned in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition and those processes that was in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. So yes, the processes are back. Those ITTOs that no one liked when studying, you like them maybe while practicing. But those ITTOs we saw in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, there's less of them. There's less processes. But those processes are back. There's no knowledge areas. They're called something different. Process groups are there. Knowledge areas are now called performance domains. Let's dive into it. Let's take a look. So I'm giving you guys a heads up. It's really just a good combination of the Process Group Practice Guide and PMBOK Guide 7th edition. It's like the books were combined. In my opinion, this is all an opinionated video, and you do me a favor, leave your comments. Let me know what you think, because you can go and review this yourself on PMI's website. Now, I do want to point out something. I want to point out that when we say PMBOK, this book is not one book, okay? When you purchase one of these books, quote unquote, PMBOK Guide 7th edition, 6th edition, it was actually two books. There was two books in there. There's not one book here. It's two books. The first book was called The Standards of Program Management. That was one. and then the actual a guide to the project management body of knowledge. So the PMBOK guide is just the part with all the processes, the performance domain, and the standards was the one with the principles. So when we refer to, generally though, when people say PMBOK guide, they mean both. They mean the standard and the actual PMBOK guide itself. All right, so just go with that. Let's get into this. All right, so here we go. Okay, so what you guys are going to do is you're going to go to the website. You're going to say review and comment, and you have to be logged in. Okay, you see I'm logged in. And when you pull it up, there's going to be two things here. The standard for program management. This is going to give you what's called the project management principles, like the beginning of the PMBOK guide, if you read 5th, 6th, 7th edition. And then the actual processes is called a guide to the project management body of knowledge, the actual PMBOK guide, where you're going to find those processes. Now, I do have some notes. Again, I want to show you guys some notes here that I want to review. Okay, so let's go into the standards of the standard for program management. Now, you do have to agree to a few things. Make sure to read every single word like I did. I've read every single one of those words, and I have to put my name in here. All right. And now it's going to load up in here. Here we go. And again, this is free for everybody. So the standards for program management. At the beginning, it tells you what's changed a little bit. And I'm going to give you some of the things that I see that's changed a lot. All right, let's get to the full document here. And you can just comment. You notice how you can just click an add button and comment. Now, I'm not going to comment in this video. And I want to go through a couple things here which I've noticed that has really changed for you. So the first thing up as I have as a note is on page 10. Now, I do want to point out something to you, that the definition of the word project has changed. This is one of the first things that I noticed was, so in the previous definition of the word project, we used to say a temporary endeavor to create a unique product, service, or result. That was the definition that I've learned when I studied project management, PMBOK 3, 4, something like that edition when I first got certified. But now I'm seeing that it's called a temporary initiative in a unique context undertaken to create value. So it's still temporary. Now it's not a temporary endeavor, it's a temporary initiative, which kind of makes sense, and undertaken to create value. I really like this definition. I think this new definition of projects makes absolute sense. Because at the end of the day, why do we do projects? We do a project not just to create a product, service, or result. We do a project to create value. You know, what's the objectives of those product, service, or result? Why would a company do a project to make a new product, to make a new service, to redesign, reconfigure, change a product, service, or to get some kind of results? Is to really create value. So I think this new definition makes much more sense than the old one. So absolutely love this part of it. I think this is good. Now, I do want to point out that this word value is a word that I saw throughout the book. Now, I did read the entire, yes, I read almost all 400 of it throughout the weekend. But remember, I knew a lot of it. A lot of it was repeated from 7th edition, 6th edition. So I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I did read most of it. I want to point out that the word value is really repeated a lot in this book. So, and it makes sense because why are we doing project management, right? Why do we do project management? To create value. The whole point, the whole objectives of doing project management is to create value. How do we define that value? Well, let's take a look here. So I got on page 21. Now, a lot of this here is just repetition of things you've already learned. So nothing new here. I didn't see anything really new here. But I like the part, we do talk projects, portfolios, programs. On page 21, I like this table here on page 21. You have examples of business value, tangible elements. Maybe we're making money, we're gaining shareholders' equity, we're building some kind of utility, we're gaining market share. Intangible goodwill, brand work. This is how some examples of business value. So why are we undertaking this quote unquote this temporary initiatives to create value? What are some of these values? Right here, the book lists it in pretty cool details. Let's continue this review here. I'm going to go down now to, and then it just goes through basic terms that was pretty much already covered in other books. Page 23. Page 23, where am I? A lot of buttons on this thing. So on page 23, I like this new diagram that I see here. This diagram is pretty cool. It shows you how projects interact with portfolios, how projects and programs interact with portfolios, how management interacts it, how everything interacts with operations. And I like this thing here that you notice projects and programs is given the benefits and value and benefits to top management. Great diagram. I can't wait to cover this in a course coming up later on. Let's take a look here now. I'm going to jump all the way down to 73, 74. A lot of this here is going into things like OPAs, organization process assets, which we covered a lot in the course. Different kinds of organizational structures. And again, my courses all cover all of this here. But one thing that is new that I do want to mention. So from the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, talked of different approaches. It does include hybrid approach now that the other one did not. So I want to just point out, let's go here to the project management principles, page 73, 74. Now, the project management principles were first taught of, you first learned about that in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. They updated these principles, makes a lot of sense. These are pretty new to your book, pretty new to this book. I think they reworded them. Let's take a look at what they are. So there's 6 main principles now. Adapt a holistic view, which means have a big overview of your project. Just don't see one part, see all of it. Focus on value. Yes, this word value does appear a lot. Remember, the whole objectives of the project is to deliver value. So focus on value. Embed quality into processes and deliverables. There's never ever an excuse for poor quality. So no matter what we do, we're always focusing on quality. Be an accountable leader. That's things like being a good servant leadership, being accountable to your team, being accountable to your stakeholders. Integrate sustainability within all project areas, not just environmental sustainability, but we're also talking about project business sustainability. And build an empowered culture. Yes, empower your team to do the best jobs that they can do. A great project manager doesn't have to be the world's best painter, or the world's best coder, or system administrator. A good project manager knows how to empower a team to become the best coders, the best painters, the best construction builders, and so on. So that is the 6 principles now. Now I do see here, interesting, the project management mindset. Hey, PMI, did you realize I had the mindset in my book? No, different mindset though. I created the mindset to pass the PMP exam. That's the mindset I created that was first published in my book. This mindset is a little different. The mindset, what is the project manager's mindset? Well, it's the inclusion of proactive, ownership, and value-driven. Basically, all six of those principles here. All right, that was the end of this book. The rest of this just reviewed all of those principles. Now, let's get into the next section, which is going to be the actual PMBOK guide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to show you what it looks like. So let's get into the actual PMBOK guide. So this is going to be the PMBOK guide 8th edition now with all the processes. So let's go here. Let's go here. Yep, I acknowledge. Put my name in here. And we're going to submit that. Okay, so here is the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. It's I have it on. They have a summary to tell you what's really changed on it. And I do want to point out that in the old PMBOK, once again, I mentioned this earlier, the old PMBOK Guide didn't really have processes. It had what's called performance domains, but we weren't too sure, what are the processes that was linked there, or what to do with those things. This one clarifies that really, really well. So let's go in here. And I am going to go down to PMBOK Guide. Let's go to page 13. The first page I have listed on my link here is page 13. So this here tells you everything you need to know. Principles are the behaviors that we follow in order to govern our project, manage the scope, schedule. Used to be cost, now it's called finance, stakeholders, our resources, and the risk on the project. Now, if you're wondering, hey, Andrew, shouldn't there be a quality? Well, quality is at the top. Quality is built into every single one of these things. Let's go to page 19, the project performance domain. Now, I want to point out that in the older PMBOK guide, in what you saw in PMBOK Guide 6th edition, they had something called a process group. in this version of the book, we don't have a process group. That's been replaced with what's called a performance domain, which you learned about in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. That's why I said it's like a combination of all these other books. So what are the actual domains of a project? Well, managing a project, managing the scope, the work, managing its schedule, managing its costs or finance, managing the people involved, the stakeholders, managing your resources like your team members, and of course, managing your risks. Because there's risk in everything we do. And I want to go down here now to page 19. Now, this is where you're going to see this table. Oops, I forgot to show you guys that. Let's do this again. All right, so let's go here again. Let's take a look at this here. So page 19 is where you see this giant table of what was in PMBOK Guide 6th edition. So you notice you have performance domain that goes down. You have the project management process groups. So what are the process group? Initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. And now instead of what's called, used to be called knowledge areas, now you have the actual performance domain. Like when you govern when you're governing a project, you're managing a project, you're going to authorize it, you're going to initiate it, you're going to integrate and align the project plans, you direct and manage your project work, you're going to monitor and control it, and you're going to close it. Now, this is actually 40 processes across these particular 40 processes across the process groups and performance domain. They are very similarly worded to what you found in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition and the process group practice guide, which is the same book as PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Some of them are different, but you notice like plan scope management, collect requirements, create WBS. They're basically all the same name. Yeah, validate scope, that was basically the same. This one here, design the schedule, develop the schedule, maintain. Some of these are new. Design the schedule we had before. Maintain the schedule we pretty much had. Control finance we had. So some of these are new. Some of these are not. Some of these are perform risk analysis, combines a few of them. And then the rest of the book goes into explaining every single one of these processes. Let me show you what I mean. So it goes into explain every one of those processes. Let me find one of them here. Explains it. So here's a process. Authorize project initiation. So this used to be develop project charter. Now it has a different name, but basically the same set of ITTOs. Look at those ITTOs coming back again to get your actual project charter. Then it explains every single one of those processes, their ITTOs, and then eventually it does this all the way on page 156. Where it then starts to, where's page 156? Hold up. Let's go to page 156. In that section of the book, it starts to explain all the ITTOs. So what this book does is this. It gives you all the processes, explains all the processes. It tells you what all the ITTOs are. And then it waits till the end of the book to explain every single one of the ITTOs because they're just repetitive over and over. So up until page 156, you're going to find all these items, and that takes up a bulk of the book now because there's so many of them. So it goes in and it explains every single one of them. And I want to just briefly glance over page 230 here because I want to point out something to you guys that some people, as a content maker and PMP teacher, one of the things that people always ask me is, do I need to know critical path method? Yeah, look, it's still here on page 230. Page 292 is interesting also. People ask me, are you ever going to remove those formulas from your PMP exam? This table looks oddly very familiar. I used a very similar table in my book. Look at this. Earned value calculation table, PV, EV, AC, BAC. Yeah, lots and lots of formulas are listed here, very similar to the way I had it in my book. And well explained, I must say. Well explained. And then the rest of the book is just a bunch of appendixes, and it is finished. So there you go. That's your review of the entire PMBOK Guide 8th edition. Do I welcome it? Yeah, I think it's great. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes more sense than what's in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. So I think this is great. The good news is that it's not very much of a change from what was. It's really an integration of 7th and 6th edition really combining with a more updated terminology. That's the best way I can explain it, right? It's a combination of 6th edition, 7th edition, and more updated to match things. There are tools now like AI, which is something you've probably heard about, right? So there's a bunch of new tools there that are listed that basically common sense, we should have those in there. So overall, I think it's a great book. It's like going back in time, I believe, to a better era of the PMBOK guide. It does include a lot of agile. It does talk about hybrid approaches. I think you still need the agile practice guide. I think it lacks a little bit on the agile side on there. But overall, great book. What you guys should do is go take a look at it. I didn't put any comments in. I did say, because if you guys know me, I'm pretty vocal critic of many things that PMI did, like updating those logos. Wasn't happy with that. But overall, I think it's a great book. Nothing wrong. I did say if I didn't agree with something, I was going to put a comment, but I didn't put a comment on anything. All right, I did read a good portion of it. The things I knew, I didn't read it. Like I wasn't going to read about OPAs and organization process assets or enterprise environmental factors or expert judgment. I didn't read that. And if I knew it, I skipped it. But what I didn't know, I read. I liked it. No comments on my side. Maybe you should go check out the book. It's free right now on PMI's website to read. If you're not doing anything, check it out. If you're a project manager, I'm pretty sure there's something there to learn. These are standards of how we do work. All right, guys, if you guys find this video helpful, do me a favor. Click on the like button, subscribe to the channel. As this book becomes more published, I will, of course, update my study guide, update my video courses. We'll make a bunch of courses on this. So with that in mind, guys, have fun learning about the new PMBOK guide. Once again, did you click on the like button? Learn the new PMBOK guide, and I'll see you in the next video.